Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story TV and the Her Story podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hi there, my name's Anne-Marie Canning. I'm based in Rotorua, New Zealand, and I'm 52. Now, my background came from a fairly strong corporate background in human resources and compliance. And as far as professionally goes, that's why I stepped into the integrated coaching space and created my own company. Now, this all stemmed from a fairly pivotal moment in my late 20s, and probably something common to many of you, where I had a marriage breakup. And that's when my world just was tipped upside down overnight. All those goals, those dreams, those pathways I had or I thought were open to me were no longer, or they just looked completely different. And it was time for me to take stock and reassess. And that's when I started stepping into that personal development space, started discovering the benefits of self-reflection, the benefits of tapping into intuition, the benefits of just ongoing learning and development. And thus, sort of 15 years later, I'd started my own business as a result of it. So part of that journey, though, was also a health journey. I worked very hard. I worked some very long hours. I had a husband that was shift working. I had this family of 3 blended, gorgeous girls, all under 7 or 8 at the time. And I was sort of clocking 50-hour weeks in this strongly corporate, very masculine driven environment, and that took a significant toll on my health. So by the time I hit my 40s, I think I had a little bit of a breast cancer scare, and that was the moment where I needed to step back and go, okay, what do I need to do differently? So once again, another pivotal moment that pushed me towards stepping into my own business and really trying to take control of my own destiny. So my background prior to that, though, when you think of it in terms of, there were these 2 key moments, was I was born and raised in Rotorua, New Zealand, from a very, I was part of a large Irish Catholic family. So surrounded that was a lot of expectation and rules, and this is how things are done. This is what's going to happen if you do this, and this is what people are going to think. So I was very much programmed to be focused on what was important to other people in my life as opposed to what was actually a fit for me. I was one of these kids that left school not having any idea around what I wanted to do and study and be. And I took the easy option there. I worked for a couple of years, then I disappeared overseas. And that was great. That supported me to tap into, I started to tap into and really get some understanding around who I was. So yeah, my primary years, so to speak, were very influential in setting up some really robust programming that didn't serve me, which I'm sure many people can connect with. And then it wasn't until I had this significant event in my late 20s, when my marriage broke down, that I realized that this programming isn't working for me. And I started needing to tap into a whole lot of different methodologies and modalities and learnings to create a new platform for myself. And I won't lie, it's been hit and miss along the way, as it is for most of us. We're learning as we go. And in recent years, as I've stepped into my 50s and now can actually focus on me, less so on the kids, I'm recognizing how much as a woman we put into our families, into our businesses, into our community, and we seldom put that time, effort, energy, and love back into ourselves. And now I'm in my 50s, I'm recognizing actually this is a big chunk of my life that's been missing. So that's kind of my story up to date.
So you have had a fascinating life where you were going down one track, found that that wasn't working. You had to pivot, try something else. How are you using all of your life skills now to empower other women?
Look, the one thing I've found is in this day and age, we lose track of our own intuition. And finding quiet time, encouraging my clients to get off the guinea pig wheel and actually start putting their own needs first, not in a selfish, all-consuming way. I encourage all my clients to operate from a positive intent, and the key behind that is to give from a full cup. You can't keep giving and focusing outwards if you are not getting a great night's sleep, if you are not filling your cup nutritionally, if you are not finding time to exercise, if you are not finding time to meditate, do yoga, whatever that looks like for you. So I think, what I learned over the years is the more I sidelined my needs and my well-being, the less I could contribute in meaningful ways to others. So with clients, one of the first things I cover off in my sessions within businesses, or if I'm doing one-on-one with clients, is to say, okay, what does that health and wellness platform look like for you at the moment? Are you experiencing fatigue? How much downtime are you having during the day? You're feeling flat, you're feeling low. Are you irritable? Are you grumpy? What does your day-to-day look like for you? And we go back to those basics. And often what we find, or what I observe in my clients is, it's 2 or 3 sessions in, once they've started dialing in some of this health and wellness part of the platform or piece of the puzzle, they're starting to have an enhanced quality life. Their relationships are improving. If they've had work challenges, they can navigate their way through those better. And that certainly supports them from a wealth perspective. They start seeing other opportunities available to them. So that's how I endeavour to give back to other women within the community, including my client base.
So based on what life has taught you, if we could have a little thought experiment and I could take you back to your past, what 3 nuggets of wisdom would you have wanted somebody to have told you about life when you were starting and embarking on this journey? What 3 nuggets of wisdom can you share?
Get clear on what your values are and operate in alignment with them. Values are seldom discussed, or we inherit values. They're projected onto us as kids, and then as we come into adults, we don't even know what is most important to us. So I think I'd be having conversations or around the first piece of advice, or certainly the things I discussed with my own children have been around understanding what is important to them. From there, the next piece of advice I would offer is, in alignment with your values, ensure that your behaviors are aligned with your values, because when you aren't operating in alignment with your values, it creates conflict. It creates conflict internally and it creates conflict externally. So behave in alignment with your values. And when you recognize you're not behaving in alignment with those values, just gently, without beating yourself up, just gently find your way back to that value point and start operating or restart operating from there. And I think the other key thing too that is super important in life is to constantly look at how you can reframe a situation that will serve you better. And once again, not in a self-serving way, but in a positive way, because there is positive to be found even in the worst situations, is something I've observed in life. And and certainly when I've been required to pivot because times have been challenging, I look back with the benefit of hindsight and go, actually, that is why I needed to experience that particular incident or circumstance or issue, is because I developed some learnings from it. So 1, values, get clear on what your values are. 2, behave in alignment with your values. And 3, reframe every situation, particularly the challenging ones, to find the positive in them.
It's interesting that you talk about finding the positive in the negative. It's a principle by which I live. I've always said that every bump in the road along my path, every rock has got a gift. And instead of just jumping over it and trying to ignore it, you turn it over, see what's there, and you learn from it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think when you recognize that there's no such thing as a bad emotion, some are just more challenging than others. And if you're using them as a red flag, those those emotions of frustration, overwhelm, anger, jealousy, those negative emotions, if you can just gently start bringing yourself back into alignment and see them as a tool, no more or less. What is the emotion? What is it telling me? Why am I feeling like this? And just gently bringing yourself back further up that sort of vibrational frequency spectrum until you're feeling slightly better. It doesn't happen all in one big hit. I think in the world these days, it's that instant gratification. If I have a glass of wine or if I eat some comfort food, I'm going to feel better. And then the negative bias starts up. You have the wine, the alcohol, the stimulants, whatever it is, and then you realize further down the track, it actually hasn't served you, but it's given you a moment away from the pain. I think these days, if you can just step in and own the pain and know that it too will pass. I had a client the other day with the most beautiful Irish expression. And we were talking about how we start turning the emotions we feel into our own identity. And she loved how the Irish put it. I think that the quote was, the Irish say, sorrow is upon me, as opposed to I am sad. That they recognize it's upon them and it will pass. And it's a beautiful way that I've now started to distinguish emotions with my clients, to say you're not actually the emotion, you feel it, and allow it to pass. It's a red flag or a call to action to say, hey, you need to create some change in this space.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Let's talk a little bit about emotions. One of the things that you've just said is that ability to be the observer of the emotions and not let the emotions kind of take over. I read an interesting quote that said, our emotions are like our children. And when they come to us, you don't push them away. You just have to sit with it for a while, and you get to decide how long that while is going to be. It could be grief, it could be sadness, it could be frustration, it could be happiness, it could be joy, but you have a choice as to how long you want to sit with it. And like you said, it passes through us, right? So what happens when we resist these emotions? What, from your experience, have you found when you are resisting emotions?
Well, I think I'd probably pull out, I think it's a Tony Robbins cliche there. I think it came from him. What we resist persists. And that's something I've definitely observed in my life. When I do not give myself grace and time to allow processing of particularly challenging emotions, you can keep shoving them to the side and tapping into those self-sabotage habits, whether it's, as I said, food, for some people it's drugs, whatever. There's no judgment there, because we all have these little defaults that we tap into that keep us secure and keep us safe, but we know in the long term that they don't serve us in any way. So I think the reality is it's being able to look at the emotion, reflect upon it, what is the lesson to be learned here, and move beyond it. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Yeah, what you do resist persists. So the more you realize that, and you just be with it, knowing that it will pass through you. Now, in your coaching work, you're obviously dealing with a lot of people with a range of issues from personal to business to finance. How can one find balance in their life when you're juggling family and work or a business, just to keep yourself sane? What are the practices that you have put in place to find balance?
Look, I think everything in life is about getting very clear on what your priorities are. As I said to you, I initially start working with clients. One of the first places that we work is in that health and wellness space. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. You can't contribute in meaningful or substantial ways to build highly connected relationships, because you're either low in energy, or you're frustrated, or you're just tired. If you don't have your health and wellness, you're going to struggle. You're also going to struggle in your career. You're going to struggle to create abundance and wealth. So I think the key is around going, well, what are my priorities here around balance? Well, first, I encourage my clients, just as you schedule meetings, schedule in exercise time, schedule in downtime, book it in and make it a priority. I also talk to my clients around saying, well, after you've dialed in your health, what's the next most important thing in your life? And of course, most people are going to say my relationships, whether it's with my spouse, whether it's with my children, whether it's with my extended family, friends. And isn't it interesting, when we're under pressure and we're struggling, the first thing that goes out the door are those high levels of connection, because as I said, we don't have the energy or the focus because we've just done a 60-hour week at work. So I tend to encourage my clients to get clear on what their absolute priorities are and schedule in time, whether, as I said, it's to exercise, whether it's a date night with their husband, whether it's family time on the weekends, and that time becomes absolutely sacred. What I have observed over my years is if you dial in those two spaces, one, it enhances the quality of your life, but two, when you are operating from that higher level of emotional, what is the word I'm looking for? That higher level of emotional awareness, that supports you in the workplace. It supports you in your career. It supports you in creating wealth and abundance. So balance for me starts with those two key things. What do I want in my health and wellness? What types of relationships do I want? And then I build from there.
Absolutely love it. Now, in juggling relationships with your children, relationships with a partner, a spouse, a husband, a wife, can be challenging, especially in this busy age that we're in, where we're trying to do everything at once. How can one find that work-life balance in relationships, do you think?
See, I don't subscribe to work-life balance. It's all life. So for me, it's about getting clear on what you want your life to look like. And there is a natural ebb and flow to life. I found, obviously, during certain years when I had young children, they needed a lot of my focus and attention. So in some ways, work was compromised because of that. As I got older, they needed not so much. They became increasingly more independent, and I could start focusing more on what was happening in my professional life. So yeah, I don't subscribe to work-life balance, but more life balance. And I always go back to those, that platform of health and wellness. If you want balance, you need to be fit and healthy and active for you to optimize your performance in any of those other areas, whether it's relationships, career, or building your wealth.
So then this goes into my next question. You coach high performance teams and individuals so that they can have an enhanced quality of life. Now, when you're highly performing, sometimes you have to sacrifice some aspects of your life to reach certain goals. How is that possible? How is that achievable?
Well, as I said, there's a natural ebb and flow to life. And it's about being clear, one, what those goals are, putting a plan in place, and actually understanding exactly what level of commitment's required. and then deciding if that's really what you want to do. So high performance teams or leaders or just individuals in particular, you'll find that they're high performing in all those key areas I spoke into: the health, the relationships, the career, and then the wealth is created. So I always come back to those basics, Gertrude, and I know I sound like a broken record. As far as balance go, there is ebb and flow. If you are not prioritizing your own health and well-being, you are really going to struggle in those other places.
Yeah. Yeah, they do say that your health is your wealth. Unless you're healthy, nothing else can come out of it.
Mm.
So now let me teleport you into the future. And you are now 90 years old. We're going to have a little thought experiment here. And you are sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your dogs, and your cats, whoever is there at the end. If I could take you to have a conversation with the future you, this wise woman who's led you up to that point, what would you say to her based on how you're living your life right now?
What would I say to my 90-year-old self? Is that the question?
Correct.
I would say to her, if you've loved well, you've taken chances, you've grazed your knees along the way, and you are surrounded by all these amazing family members, friends, animals, you've contributed to your community, to your people in some way, shape, or form, you've lived a great life. You've absolutely lived a great life. And I hope I don't have too many wrinkles. Who knows?
I like to ask that question, Annie, because you said something in the very beginning of this interview when you were talking about intuition and how we forget to tap into that intuitive part of ourselves. I play a lot in the essence of who I am becoming. I know that wise woman is already in me. And there are times when I get stuck and I have no idea what the next step should be. And I go into my meditation and my prayers, and I just simply ask the question, what is the next step? And I sleep on that. And it's amazing what happens in that your subconscious doesn't stop working while you're sleeping. And I wake up with these light bulb moments at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I've got a clear picture of, what I'm supposed to do next. Or sometimes I'm talking to a friend and I mention what I'm going through or what I'm working on, and somebody will say something that's kind of leads to a chain of events that helps me get to the solution. But I believe that we have all of the answers to everything that we are challenged in life, and we have to trust ourselves that the answers are within. A lot of times we look outside of ourselves for solutions, and that's not really the place to look. So in building your practice, in working with your clients, what would you say has been the biggest teaching that you have received from this work? Give me 3 major lessons in life.
Just to continue on with what you were talking to around the intuition, you are absolutely right. All the answers are within your answers. You don't need to go external. And I think this is the key thing. So rule number 1 for me is always go in. Don't go without, go within. And that involves, maybe I like listening to brown noise. I might just put it on for 12 or 13 minutes on a timer, and I sit quietly and allow my brain some downtime, just anything to create space in my brain to step away from the noise, to step away from the narrative I've got running. So that's the key. That's how you tap into your intuition. You create some space in your own head for your intuition, for those answers to present and rise to the top. Secondly, lessons are step away from judgment. We create, due to our programming, we have judgments about so many things. What we don't realize is that when we're external in those judgments, whether we're judging someone by their behaviors or how much money they make or the clothes they wear, we're actually judging ourselves. It's like turning the mirror back on ourselves. And we operate at our best, and it might sound so cliched now, but we operate at our best when we are being gentle and kind to ourselves and in flow. And you can see what sort of state you are in or where your headspace is at, depending on how you are viewing the world and how you are viewing other people in it. So I think that's the key. Always go within or you go without. So that's another expression I've picked up somewhere along the way, but I think that's valid. So clear your mind, go within, and that's where your answers reside. Now, my third lesson is time. Everything takes time. And you have the ability to manifest everything in your life. And it's something I talk to my clients about when they come in and they're not in a good space. I'll ask them, how did you create this reality? And I get a blank look. And once they start comprehending that, the narrative they have running, the words they use, how they speak to other people, how they treat themselves, creates a narrative and in turn creates their own reality. They attract noise and drama in. So if you want to change your reality into something that serves you better, to have a better quality of life, you need to change the narrative. You need to look at how you treat yourself, and that's reflected in how you treat others. So those are the three key learnings, is that we can create our own reality. And if we're tapping in to our subconscious, to our superconscious, that actually all the answers are in there that are a perfect fit for us.
I love that. You touched on something that I've been looking at very recently about being in the flow state.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to end our interview with that, if you could go into a little bit more detail. For me, when I'm in a flow state, things fall into place effortlessly. It's like I'm just on the right track, and these pieces to a puzzle are falling into place in a very unusual and magical way. Can you explain to us your concept of being in flow and what the flow state actually means?
Sure. For me, flow is when I don't have a lot of that internal dialogue going on, where I'm completely and 100% focused on, that could be as simple as cleaning the sink, being in the garden, or working on a project, or just completely in the zone working with a client. I'm at one, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and intellectually. And it's a beautiful space to occupy. It's that space, how I explain it to most people is time. There is no such thing as time. You are just in that moment and you're completely present. And flow is such a wonderful space to be in, because you are operating from intuition. You are operating at a higher level. You are at your most creative. You are at your most focused. And as I said to you, brown noise, or listening to brown noise, taking myself offline is one of the fastest ways, if I find I'm out of alignment, to get back into a flow state. Doing things I absolutely love and fill my cup puts me in a flow state. So it's understanding, we're each of us are different. It's working out what is the best fit for each individual as to how they can tap into their flow.
Wow, Annie, I have so loved connecting with you today. Thank you for all of your nuggets of wisdom. I have your website scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Is that the best way that people can get in touch with you?
Yep, it sure is. They can connect with me. My email address is on there and my phone number. So please, I'd love to hear from any of you.
Fantastic. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is meeting some phenomenal women from all over the world. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview another amazing woman. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Annie, thanks again for the interview.
You're so welcome, Gertrude. It's been a privilege.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates, and join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time,